Hi, I'm Mike Colter, and I'm about to recap Season 1 of Luke Cage. So Luke Cage, formerly known as Carl Lucas, is an escaped convict from Georgia, on the run from the authorities laying low in Harlem, New York. He happens to have impenetrable skin and super strength due to an illegal experiment conducted on him when he was a prisoner. By day, Luke works as a sweeper at this guy Pop's barbershop. By night, he's a dishwasher in Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes' club, Harlem's Paradise. Stokes is a ruthless crime boss who is cousins with councilwoman Mariah Dillard. He used her campaign funds illegally to renovate his club. One night, Luke fills in as a bartender at Harlem's Paradise, where he meets undercover detective Misty Knight. They have coffee, and she lies about her true identity to him afterwards, saying she's an auditor. Luke was filling in as a bartender that night for a young guy named Dante, who was out with his friends Shamik and Chico heisting a gun deal between Stokes' people and the gang leader Domingo Colon's people. Stokes is selling arms from a mysterious supplier named Diamondback. After a shootout, Shamik, Chico, and Dante get the guns and the money, but Dante panics and Shamik kills him. Misty and her partner Detective Scarf investigate the crime scene, which eventually leads her to Pop's, where Luke realizes she lied to him about her identity. With the help of Diamondback's man Shades, Stokes tracks down Shamik, kills him, and gets his money back. But Chico is still on the run. Mariah uses Stokes' thugs to demand contributions to her campaign from local landlords, including Luke's Jin and Connie Lin, who also own a Chinese restaurant called Genghis Connie's on the first floor of their building. When Luke finds Stokes' thugs harassing Jin and Connie, he fights them off using his super strength. Pop asks Luke to track down Chico so that he can set up a parlay with Stokes and save the boy's life. Luke finds Chico and takes him back to Pop's, but one of Stokes' men, Tone, tracks them down and shoots up the place, killing Pop and wounding Chico. When Stokes finds out, he throws Tone off the building, killing him. Meanwhile, Bobby Fish, an old friend of Pop's who is known for his chess skills, tells Luke that the bank is going to take over the barbershop. Luke knows the community needs the shop, and inspired by Pop, he decides to use his abilities for good. Luke begins attacking Stokes' safe houses around Harlem in order to manipulate Stokes into moving all of his money to the Crispus Attucks complex, a heavily fortified safe house as well as an apartment complex Mariah planned to use to help revitalize Harlem. In a badass sequence, Luke enters Crispus Attucks, kicks basically everyone's butt, and takes a duffel bag of $80,000 from Stokes' $7 million in cash holed up there. He gives the $80,000 to Bobby Fish to fix up Pop's barbershop, and the police confiscate the rest of the money, leaving Stokes essentially broke. Luke also convinces Chico to testify against Stokes, and Chico calls Misty's partner Scarf, telling him he'll talk, but Scarf turns out to be on Stokes' payroll and kills Chico. In revenge for Crispus Attucks' raid, Stokes fires a missile at Genghis Connie's, demolishing the building, with Luke and Connie trapped in the rubble. While he's trapped, we see flashbacks of Luke's past when he was still Carl Lucas, an inmate at Georgia's Seagate prison. We learned that while there, he was forced into a legal fighting ring and fell in love with his therapist, Dr. Reaver Connors, who he would go on to marry. We also see that an experimental procedure by Dr. Noah Bernstein is how he obtained his powers, which ultimately allowed him to escape. In the present, Luke and Connie escape from the rubble of Genghis Connie's, and Luke reveals his name and abilities to the media. Stokes sends his thugs around town to extort the people of Harlem, telling them to blame Luke Cage. Shades recognizes Luke from Seagate prison and offers Stokes a prototype weapon called a Judas bullet that could actually harm Luke, but Diamondback will charge him a crazy amount of money for it. So Stokes has Scarf steal the guns from the Domingo deal out of the police custody. Scarf tries to charge Stokes an extra $100,000 for the guns, so Stokes shoots him, takes the guns, and leaves Scarf for dead. Stokes takes the weapons and sells them to Domingo. Meanwhile, a nurse named Claire Temple, who you'll know if you watch Netflix's Daredevil or Jessica Jones, returns to Harlem to visit her mother, Soledad, telling her she wants to help treat people with special abilities. She runs into Luke, who takes a liking to her, asking her out for coffee. Later, at Pop's, Scarf shows up dying from bullet wounds from Stokes. Luke calls Claire, and they try to take him where he can get help. Mercenaries hired by Stokes ambush Luke, Claire, and Scarf, and though Luke fends them off, Scarf dies. At his apartment, Scarf had evidence of his dealings with Stokes, which Luke retrieves and uses to have Stokes arrested. In a live TV interview, a reporter ties Mariah to her cousin's shady business, and Damon Boone, a political rival of hers, informs her that her party wants her to resign. The evidence scarf provided against Stokes is deemed inadmissible and Stokes is set free. In a flashback, we see his upbringing under mobster Mama Mabel and how she's forced him to kill his own Uncle Pete, who had betrayed the family. Stokes tells Luke he knows his true identity is that of fugitive Carl Lucas and threatens to reveal it unless he leaves Harlem. But Claire convinces Luke to stay and fight. Mariah tries to get Stokes to give up his crusade against Luke, which results in them arguing and Mariah murdering Stokes. Shades helps her to cover up the murder and enacts a plan to frame Luke for it. He gets Harlem's Paradise worker, Candace, to lie, telling police she saw Luke Cage over the body. Now Misty and all the police in Harlem are looking for Luke. Suddenly, Diamondback himself shows up and shoots Luke with a Judas bullet, badly wounding him. Claire can't take the bullet out of Luke because she can't cut into his impenetrable skin. Diamondback ambushes them again, and Luke recognizes Diamondback as his childhood friend, Willa Stryker. Their fight ends with Stryker firing yet another Judas bullet into Luke's chest. Luke falls into the back of a garbage truck that drives away with him in it, but not before Diamondback reveals to Luke that he is his brother. Twist. Diamondback almost kills Misty, but decides to let her go. She's shaken up, and while interrogating Claire, Misty flips out and attacks her, forcing her boss, Inspector Ridley, to intervene. The police are still after Luke, and when confronted by two officers, he is forced to fight them off. His crazy powers are captured on their dash cam, and the footage goes viral. Luke reunites with Claire, reveals his true identity, and the two head down to Georgia to find Dr. Bernstein in hopes that he can help save Luke's life. Bernstein no longer works for Seagate, but he still has his old technology. They give him an old drive of Reva's that they could not access. Bernstein and Claire are unable to revive Luke and take out the shrapnel from the Judas bullets. But looking at Reva's old drive, Luke learns that she was in on the underground fight ring and the experiments of Seagate the entire time. He flips out and destroys Bernstein's equipment, telling him to never replicate the experiment again. But after they leave, we see Bernstein still has a copy of the data he needs to continue. Reminiscing, Luke recalls that his father, a preacher, had a son with his secretary out of wedlock, and that boy was Willa Stryker, aka Diamondback. He and Claire leave to go back to Harlem to confront him once and for all. Mariah has Domingo to arrange a meeting with all the local crime bosses, but Diamondback shows up and kills them all, except Mariah and Domingo. Mariah asks Diamondback why he wants to sell weapons to criminals when he could sell them to legitimate sources. They hatch a plan to convince the NYPD to buy the Judas bullets to fight back against Luke Cage. Diamondback kills a police officer, framing Cage while upping the pressure for police to capture him and be able to defend themselves against him. One cop ends up attacking a young boy during an interrogation, and Mariah and the community gather at Harlem's Paradise to show support for the kid. Misty shows up to arrest Diamondback just as Luke and Claire arrive as well. Diamondback shoots Misty and all hell breaks loose. People run, but Diamondback and his mercenaries take hostages. They make it appear as though Luke is the one orchestrating it all from the inside. As police surround the club, now armed with Judas bullets, inside Luke escapes to a hidden basement beneath the kitchen floor with Misty. Claire, Candace, and Damon Boone are all taken hostage. Claire escapes the hostages and joins Luke and Misty in the hidden basement, where she treats Misty's gunshot wound. Diamondback uses the PA system to demand Luke come out from hiding, or he'll kill hostages every 10 minutes. Luke leaves the basement to go face Diamondback, but Shades finds a secret entrance and confronts Misty and Claire. Together, the women knock him out and cuff him to a pipe. Diamondback kills Damon Boone and sends him outside, where Inspector Ridley finally authorizes a police raid of the club. Police rush in as Luke is about to confront Diamondback, but Diamondback uses Candace to cover his escape. Luke, Shades, and the other mercenaries are all taken in by the police. On the way to the police station, Luke manages to get away while Misty tries to find Diamondback and clear Luke's name. Candace tells Misty she realized she was wrong to help Mariah frame Luke for Stokes' murder and says she'll testify against Mariah in exchange for protection. Misty has Candace hole up in Claire's mother Soledad's apartment. Diamondback gets Shades released on bail, only to attempt to have him killed. Realizing Diamondback betrayed him, Shades goes to Mariah, suggesting they form an alliance with Luke Cage to take down Diamondback. Meanwhile, Domingo and his men try to take out Diamondback themselves, and Diamondback manages to kill them all using a secret weapon. Luke interrupts a convenience store robbery, which rapper Method Man happens to be present for. On a radio show, Method Man tells everyone Luke Cage is a good guy, and soon the Harlem community rallies behind him, even wearing bullet hole-ridden hoodies in solidarity and to confuse the police. At Pops, Shades and Mariah offer Luke a folder that supposedly contains proof of Carl Lucas's innocence in exchange for an alliance. Diamondback attacks wearing a suit that gives him super strength and invulnerability just like Luke. The two fight on the streets of Harlem, and in the chaos, Shades loses the folder with the info proving Carl Lucas's innocence. Luke finally defeats Diamondback, though he lets him live. Luke surrenders to the police without a fight and is taken in. Misty arrests Mariah for the murder of her cousin Stokes. Shades picked up Misty's phone she used to contact Candace, and he pretends to be Misty, telling Candace to meet up. He murders Candace, and without her as a witness, Misty is forced to let Mariah go free. Two officers from Seagate show up to take Luke back to jail in Georgia. He goes willingly, but not before he and Claire share a kiss. At Pop's, Bobby Fish finds the folder with evidence proving Luke's innocence. Mariah reopens Harlem's Paradise, and Misty shows up undercover to continue spying on her. And finally, in Diamondback's hospital room, we see Dr. Bernstein close the door, presumably to begin experimenting on him the same way he did Luke Cage. Well, as Luke Cage would say, sweet Christmas. That is where Season 1 ends. Stay tuned for Season 2 to find out what happens on Marvel's Luke Cage.